Yes, this is our last of four panels for the year. We had an amazing run, and I hope if you like this one, you'll go back and watch the others that we did. I'll go through those in a moment, but just to walk you through what we're going to cover today. Thank you, Financial Poise, National Law Review, and essentially, of course, the sponsor, Max Asset. The material in this webinar is for informational purposes only, not considered legal, financial, or professional advice. Obviously, get a consultation with someone good. We'll take a moment to just introduce our panelists so you know who you're going to be hearing from for the next hour. You guys are in for such a treat. I was saying to the group, like, you have no idea what you're in for. These are amazing attorneys and professionals that are going to blow your mind with the content they're about to share with you, setting you guys up for success. I hope not, right? Not trying to oversell it, but I'm thinking I may have just done that. Anyway, let's start off with Phil, and we'll kind of work our way around. So, Phil, you want to just introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, sure. Steve, always great to be with you. What a great panel you put together here, man. It's awesome. So Phil Fernaro, we're a Chicagoland attorney. We work in the outside general counsel arena, mostly middle market businesses and family offices. And we love getting on and educating people in this type of thing, and love rainmaking, love business development. And I love my podcast too, Steve. You inspired that as well.
Which the name is?
Light Bulb Moments. It's all about the energy.
Yeah, check that out on every podcast platform you can, everybody. Thank you, Phil. Let's go to Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Gilman. I'm founder and president of Gilman Strategic Group. I work with rainmakers who are still unhappy, even though they're very successful. We find their exact right, perfect fit. But in that work that we do with them, we often try and fine tune their marketing plans and their business development skills. And then I send them over to you, Steve. So there we go. I am very happy to be here. Thanks for including me.
100%. Thank you. And Tina.
I'm Tina Martini. I'm an intellectual property partner with the law firm McDermott, Will and Schulte based in Chicago. I have been practicing in big law for over 30 years. I've been at McDermott for the past 7.5 years and started my career and spent the first 25 years of my career at another large global law firm, again in Chicago. In addition to my practice being on what I would call the non-patent or soft side of IP, I also lead a lot of client service teams that are multidisciplinary and multi-jurisdictional as part of what I do on a day-to-day basis at McDermott. And I'm very happy to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation, Stephen. I think you have been telling people that I've inspired you with your podcast, and then you in turn inspired Phil. I'm a co-host with Rich Lankoff on the WGN podcast Legal Face Off. And that's another way that I go to market is having a lot of fun with Rich and crew twice a month on the WGN podcast.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, WGN is a big deal in Chicago. I've been listening to WGN since I was a little baby boy. So thank you, Tina. And let's wrap up with Ido.
Thanks, Steve, and thanks for having me on. Just chatting with the panel. I'm excited to hear from them as well. So my name is Ido Wolny. I'm the founder and managing partner of Wolny Legal Group. We're a boutique estate planning shop based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but with a national and even international footprint. When I'm not doing legal stuff here, I am a consultant for a small company out of California. I make cufflinks, I restore cars, and I have a daughter who skates for the U.S. national team.
Fantastic. All right. And everybody knows me. Hopefully, if you've seen these panels before, Steve Fretzin, Be That Lawyer, working to help lawyers to live their best lawyer life through training and coaching and peer advisory groups. And of course, writing books and podcasting and all kinds of fun stuff. So you can check me out on LinkedIn online. But we're going to have some fun today. We're really going to get deep into the world of rainmaking. So we'll jump into that. In case you guys were wondering what you've missed, if you want to go back, the future of legal tech was done on September, Legal Business Development Coaches Corner back in October, and then content creation back in November. So then, of course, today. So fantastic. Let's talk about how you become a rainmaker. So I've got a list of questions here. Every one of them is going to draw out more and more amazing content from this group. Let's start off with Tina on this one, and we'll work our way around the room. What are the most common misconceptions lawyers have about rainmaking and client development?
Love this question, Steve, and I think there are a lot of misconceptions. I'll just rattle off a few and would love to hear from my fellow panelists. But I would say that still to this day, notwithstanding how important it clearly is to be able to develop clients, especially when you're in private practice, people think still that if you're a good rainmaker, you don't have substance, that it's sort of like a binary thing, that it's fluff and that it actually demeans or cheapens what a lawyer's real value is to clients. There's also a misconception that you're either born a rainmaker or you're not, and that it's not something that you're able to develop over time as part of a skill set. Another one that I think is really important and would love to tease out with my fellow panelists here is that marketing and business development are the same thing.
Yeah.
They are so not the same thing. And I think all my panelists will agree that that is a distinction that has been even more meaningfully teased out in the last several years. And so I will leave it at that and we can turn to the other panelists.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into business development, marketing, and how they differ a little later. But Jennifer, what's your take?
Well, I agree with Tina that there's a misconception that some people are born rainmakers and some people aren't, and you can't learn. But I think further along on that, there's a misconception that there's only one kind of business development activity. For the, introverts out there, there are a lot of different things you can do that don't require you to go into a room full of 5,000 strangers and hand out your business card. And the other misconception is, I'm so busy, I'll do rainmaking stuff when I'm less busy. And it's like compound interest. You have to do a little bit at a time and it builds up over the years. And I think that every lawyer who's listening to this can find 15 or 20 minutes a week to do something because doing one small thing every week builds up and gains some traction. It's much better than trying to do all your rainmaking activity in December.
Wonderful.
Although you
Oh,
should start today if you haven't done anything yet.
well, right. It's like I've decided I'm gonna lose weight, but I'm gonna do it in 6 months. I mean, that's not a thing, right? It's not a real thing. You know?
Yeah, when I was a young lawyer, I don't know if they still use this saying, but they always said, lawyers could be one of three things, right? Minders, finders, or grinders. And I think a rainmaker falls into this finder category. But I think one of the big misconceptions is, you have to sort of decide that you're one of those three things. And I think that good lawyers and certainly good rainmakers can be all of those things. You have to take good care of clients, or else the clients that you have found or started rainmaking, they go away and they go to some other rainmaker, and then they're going to bring success to that person. But I think obviously having some competence in your area is a good foundation because it's not fluff. It's not some show that you're putting on for clients and potential clients. I mean, you are doing the things that you need to do to bring those clients to work with you. We all think that we're special, but at the end of the day, there is some commoditization in a client or potential client's mind. And so, to me, a lot of rainmaking is just differentiation within a marketplace, and it's I mean, the core of any business. I think certainly there are some skills that can be developed and can be learned. It's not something for someone else or something that you look at somebody who's really polished that you don't think you can ever do. Like anything, it is a skill, and it's a skill that can be developed and polished over the course of a career.
100%, 100%. Phil?
Yeah, so this is gonna be highly stressful, Steve. These answers are so great. I'm just excited that I have one left.
Ah,
So here's the model that I always align with is that people think that good legal work and top quality legal work will carry them home with the clients and keep and maintain client bases, but it's actually the opposite. As the good practitioner is the standard. The great practitioner is the standard. If you don't somehow add value through rainmaking and interacting with people and growing your network, you'll fail, as an attorney in terms of gaining a nice, valuable client base. And I'm sure Jennifer's going to talk about it later on is how to use that to your advantage by being a rainmaker. So you can't just concentrate, the misconception, you can't just concentrate on being a practitioner.
yeah. Final thoughts on this before we move on? Good. All right, guys, let's move on to what activities look productive early in your career but turned out to be a complete waste of time. Because I think, I'm working with lawyers all the time on planning, and sometimes we have this great idea of how they're going to spend their time. We measure it, we manage it, and we realize, wow, that was not a great use of your time. Let's look at other things. What kind of did you get dragged into early on that maybe wasn't so great, Jennifer?
I got dragged into being a seat filler at a lot of the Federal Bar Association holiday party, things like that, where my firm had bought a table and some people kind of canceled last minute. And I didn't have a real plan for what I was going to do when I got there because it really was last minute. And I was scared to talk to some of those big heavy hitters because I was very junior. And I probably stuck to the wall a little bit and talked to the couple of people in the room that I knew and may have wasted that opportunity to be in a room with people that it would have been nice to meet. So I think that having some kind of plan or some kind of strategy, you don't have to meet everyone, but it's a nice idea to try and meet a couple people wherever you go.
Yeah, really good. Phil?
Yeah, so this wasn't early, this was mid during the downturn, switching to Google Ads. So not knowing that that was going to bring in zero point 0 to host, to quote Blutarski from Animal Houses, is that I got no leads as a result of it. And because it taught me that at that point in time is that you think it's going to help, but you have to focus on the clients that are good for you, not the ones that are bad for you. So as soon as you find the ones that are bad, I would have exited out of all of those way earlier and found my people. And I know we're going to talk about that later on because my people are the ones that are always giving me business and always being there for me when I need them.
Yeah, as opposed to just random haphazard ads. Got
That's
it.
right.
Ito.
So I'm sure this won't be the last time I say this today, but I'm one of those people who doesn't believe that anything is a complete waste of time. If you can make every decision be something that counts and brings you clients, I want to get financial advice from you because your portfolio must be amazing. But everybody makes mistakes, right? Everybody, you've got to learn what works for you, and what works for you may not be what works for the person in the office next door to you. But you're only going to know that by trying, right? Phil thought that these ads were going to bring him business, and he didn't realize that they wouldn't, or that that strategy wasn't effective for him until he tried it. But it must work for somebody because Google's sure making a lot of money. And so, I certainly have made mistakes, but I've learned from those mistakes. I mean, I think back early on, being in estate planning where, everyone potentially needs estate planning. And so I would do things like go to Chamber of Commerce meetings and quickly learn that, I don't need to necessarily talk to every painter and every small business owner in the universe. But what that allowed me to do was hone my message and learn how to talk to people and figure out what a good lead early on versus not a good lead was. And so while that didn't turn out to be great, it served some stepping stones to me really becoming a much better rainmaker. So not a complete waste of time, but maybe not the awesomest use of my time either.
That's a great point. We can't be successful without failure, without mistakes. It's impossible. Tina?
Well, I completely agree with everything that's been said, and I think this panel has said some really wonderfully insightful things. To piggyback, on what's been said, I do think that there are certain activities that may be really productive at certain times of your career, and then at other times in your career, or too much of them ends up really being counterproductive at a certain point. Conferences, my philosophy on conferences and trade association gatherings is to just give some serious thought to whether, the juice, so to speak, is worth the squeeze. Because if there are a lot of people just like you around in this conference and you go through the trouble of traveling for it, speaking at it, you just have to be really mindful about why you're doing it. Because if you're doing it to build your profile, that sometimes is a very different end game than trying to get business. And so to that end, I'd say thought leadership, which Steve knows I'm really a fan of, can be done in a very strategic way, but you have to also be mindful of the counterproductive, or sometimes what I would say is you don't get the benefit of the effort. So writing case summaries, for example, I've never been a big fan of writing case summaries because, at least in the context in which I've practiced during the course of my career, those sorts of things, unless you're writing on something extraordinarily cutting edge and you are a thought leader within your organization and in the community, those don't generally lead to direct business. They're profile building. And so those are just a couple of thoughts I have on this
Yeah.
one.
Well, it's
It-
interesting that oh, yeah, another Phil?
no, I just was wondering from Tina, 'cause she's an IP attorney, if I can steal that juice isn't worth the
Mhm.
squeeze. Is that you didn't patent that or anything, did you?
No, I did not. I
All
did
right,
not.
cool.
I think that's been
Thanks.
around
It's
the
more of a
block a few times.
colloquialism, so.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve. I digress.
No, no problem. So there's things that we've learned from mistakes made and things that maybe didn't produce. But then there was a point where there was something that you tried that did produce, which is a great lead into the question is, what has been the most effective and repeatable strategies that you use for business development? And I'm going to throw in marketing there. It's not written on the screen, but I think if you found something repeatable through either business development and marketing, and maybe Jennifer, if you want to just give your 2 cents on the difference between those two and then lead into your answer, that would be super helpful.
Sure, I'm not the marketing expert that you are, but
Well, you don't have to be an
marketing
expert to know
is,
that.
a little bit more about visibility. And I think business development should be a lot more about developing relationships. So you might use LinkedIn posts originally as marketing to become a thought leader, but once you connect with people on LinkedIn, you might want to have a way to like and comment on the posts of the people that you're trying to get to know better, or to produce content that helps the people that are in your desired avatar. I think that some of the marketing and business development mistakes I see are trying to get to everybody. I mean, you can't reach everybody, even if you're a trust and estates lawyer and you say everybody needs a will, but everybody doesn't have characteristics. It's a lot easier to reach somebody a little bit more specific. So I think most lawyers should start by thinking whether they're B2B or B2C. And if they're trying to use social media, they have to be on the right platform. I'm looking at the B2B audience, so I spend my time on LinkedIn, but I know a lot of colleagues and a lot of other lawyers who get a lot out of TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. You sort of have to know your audience a little. And I think that knowing the room you want to be in, but just like we were talking about, trying something isn't a mistake. It's not learning from the information that you gather. So
Yeah.
if you go to a lot of Chamber of Commerce meetings and you see that it takes you 2 hours to go, but you're never having any good conversations or developing any good relationships or seeing the type of people you need to meet or the type of people who know them in the room, you might want to try a different sort of meeting. So initially, when I was developing my company, I thought that I should get to know anyone who worked with lawyers. And that turned out to be a lot too broad for us because there were a lot of people who worked with different kinds of lawyers than we could help, or who worked with different professionals at the law firms. And I was spending so much time out and about going to every networking meeting there was, that I was staying up late and working every weekend just to get
Yeah.
my work done. So, business development, I think, is a key priority for lawyers, but being a good attorney is the price of admission. So you have to
Yeah.
make sure that you're leaving yourself enough time to get some work done too.
Yeah. What's a repeatable strategy that's worked for you to grow business?
I'll say three really quick things. So the first is how I use social media. So I really focus on LinkedIn, as you know, Steve. But I don't use LinkedIn to get clients. So I know that professionals are going to LinkedIn. There's huge networks there. I have developed this sort of hashtag celebrity thing where I am posting about celebrities that pass away. I've developed networks where people tell me these things like as they happen. But I do that with some frequency so that I'm always on the top of people's feeds, because people don't need estate planning all the time. But if they're hopping on LinkedIn to sort of find an estate planner quickly, I want to be at the top of their feed. So that's one thing. The next thing is that I always try to meet people in person wherever they are. Meeting people in person is always better than virtual if you can do it. But I always try to talk to them about them. I want to learn about them and what I can refer to them. I find that looking to make referrals brings me referrals in spades back. But then most importantly is I never keep score. I don't know if you sent me one referral or three referrals. I'm always looking to do things, but I'm never keeping track of saying, you gave me three, so I owe you three. This isn't a checker game, right? Different referrals have different values in different industries to different people. And so I always tell people I'm trying to connect you to good clients who are going to be good for you. If it's never going to be sort of one for one, but in terms of dollars, I'm sure you're going to do really well on the referrals that I make you. But don't keep score. It's way healthier for you, and it's going to be way better for those referral relationships.
I would just add to be careful about that, Ito. I love what you're saying. The mindset is spot on. But if you're giving 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 matters to someone and you believe that they could be referring you back, but they're not, they're referring someone else, I would just be sensitive to that, right? So like to meet with them enough to know that it's not just a one-way street and you're being kind of taken advantage of. But in other cases, people just want to send things to good lawyers. So, I mean, you have to kind of weigh out the pros and cons of that. But I love what you're saying about not keeping score and being super hyper, specific about it. I think that's good. Phil?
Yeah. So adding on to that, the concept, I like we have a little controversy finally. Everyone can't love each other always. So the ideology though is yeah, I always think about it in perspective of the client, or my strategic partner, what can help them. And if it's going to help them and I don't get the referral, then maybe I'm okay with it. It's just sort of how worlds collide. And, you can always, and if you're a good referral source, you should be open to having that conversation. Say, hey, give me a little taste. I saw you had a big client that fit my model. Let's talk. Let's have lunch with them or something like that. So I think the strategy that's worked brilliantly for me is I used to give my card out. My business is for the young people too, maybe for the older. I just give my card out and I would come back and no one would ever email me or call me afterwards. So I never give my card out unless someone asks me that they need my card, because otherwise it's probably a false lead. And anybody that's of interest to me or my clients or my strategic partners, I grab their cards. And the key component to all of it, in my opinion, is sending them an email about something within the discussion that they've had, whether it was that they liked the Cubs or that was cool. Here's that article I was speaking about, something like that. If you wait too long, it loses its effectiveness. So following up the next day or even that night, said, hey, it was wonderful meeting you. Here's some information about what I talked about. And don't try to sell them at that point. Don't ever try to sell them. And it's funny you guys were having the sales and marketing discussion. I just learned what the difference was about 3 weeks ago. So,
oh, really? So what is that? What's your answer?
So I'm a horrible marketer and I'm a great salesperson. I realized that just more so just a couple minutes ago. The last thing I would say is the strategy that's the best. I sort of alluded to it in the last question. Is that I became more adept at finding my people. So I learned that my practice is generally related to the Eastern European group and trucking generally, that they are a huge referral source to me, CPAs and financial planners. I don't need anybody else, really. I don't have to actively market to get clients in on a daily basis.
Yeah, fantastic. And Tina, I know you want to just take a moment about marketing and business development. You do both very well. Can you kind of give your sort of feeling about those and then leading into what's been working for you?
Sure. I mean, I would say marketing is really sort of creating brand awareness. At least that's the way I look at it is, creating a presence, creating a profile, making sure that if you're with a law firm, for example, especially in big law, making sure that there isn't any dissonance between who you are, what your profile is, and what is the profile and brand awareness tied with your firm, your group, etc. Whereas business development is actually thinking of ways to go to market and create revenue, proliferate revenue where revenue may exist, or taking a relationship that doesn't exist and creating it and driving revenue from that. I think what's been said by the panel in response to this question is gold. There's been a lot of really great ideas. I'd say for the big law contingent or even just a general practice firm contingent of our audience, that one of the really important things to do is to not just sell what you do in your practice area and your team's area, but to also get educated enough about what your partners do that you are able to speak fluently to clients and prospective clients about what your partners do. There have been numerous occasions over the years where my first sale, if you will, to a new client has not been in my area. It has been because I asked the questions, found out what is keeping the client up at night, and realized it's not an IP issue, it's a corporate issue or a litigation issue. And then knowing who within my firm is able, number one, from a substantive standpoint, but number two, who's going to get along with the client, who is going to be somebody who is able to effectively work with the client, being able to put those two things together and make the introduction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love a combination of business development and marketing together. I feel like they balance each other out, and you have to be consistent. That's the key. So asking my clients when they're happy and they're successful and they're rainmaking, who else I should be talking to that's just like them. You're the ideal client for me. Who's just like you? I want to talk to people just like you. And then the other side of it, the marketing side of it, and Phil can and Tina can talk to this as well, is the podcasting. In fact, I track all of my business that comes in, the referrals from Jennifer and the podcast referrals and LinkedIn. And LinkedIn was a big part of it, but 50% of my business that came in was from or in and around the podcast, Be That Lawyer, which blows my mind, because that's, typically marketing supports business development. In this case, it's been leading business development, and the leads that come inbound to me from Poland and from Israel and from all around the world, my podcast has such great legs. So I think where you start and where you end up and how you evolve, it's all just staying in it and tracking and measuring what is working, but being consistent. You can't do random acts of business development or marketing and expect it to pay off quickly. I think it's got to be a consistent effort. It's really key.
Steve, I just want to underscore something that Tina
Please.
said. A lot of lawyers don't think enough about cross-selling and cross-marketing. At most firms, you get origination credit for bringing in a client for someone else. So if you know what your partners do and you know what they do in other areas at your firm, you could be giving out work across the firm, and that counts for your business development too. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes lawyers don't focus on that enough.
It's probably one of the most missed areas of business development, that where people are just leaving like piles of money just sitting around because they didn't ask that extra question or two to their client. To Tina's point, like what keeps you up at night, that type of thing. So really, really good. But I think part of this has to do with the mindset, right? I think if you're looking at rainmakers like yourselves and what makes you special and unique in growing a business, there are certain behaviors and mindsets that separate you from the pack. What do you feel, whether it's you or just other rainmakers, that what are the things that you're doing and thinking that allow you to be consistent as a rainmaker?
Yeah, I think Phil really started touching on this in the last question, but I look at this as more problem solving for the client than rainmaking, right? So I always try to position myself as a problem solver, as a center of influence. Maybe I'm not the right person who can solve your problem, but I'd like for you to run that through me so that I can connect you with the right person. And at a big firm, maybe it's someone in a different department, but for me, because I only sort of do one thing here, we do planning and administration. So if I get a litigation issue, I'm going to connect you with litigators. If you've got a complex IP issue, I'm going to connect you with some good IP people. But I'd like that to run through me, right? And that means that the next time that client has a problem, or if they have an issue with a neighbor, or some colleague is looking for something, that's going to run through me. I always, because of that, when I'm talking to other people, I want to know, what do you do? What is a good referral to you? How can I help you from a business perspective? Because then, if I'm focusing on them, everybody likes to talk about themselves and sell themselves. Eventually that comes back around to me, and referrals will come my way. But I'm more looking to connect and help clients and connect other lawyers in the industry rather than focus on myself. But by doing that and having that be my mindset, if that's the question, that comes back to me in spades every single time.
Yeah. Awesome. Tina?
So I agree with everything that was just said. I'd say that the most successful rainmakers are thinking about BD all the time. Um, and it's not to the exclusion of anything else. It's not like, for example, they don't get their work done or don't do other things. But there's this inextricable intertwining, I'd say, of people's personal and professional lives. And they are connecting dots all the time, even if the vast majority of people don't see how a particular set of dots can get connected. They figure out ways. It's a muscle that they flex so much that they are able to see the dots and connect the dots that many other people can't. They're brilliant at institutionalizing relationships, particularly if you're talking about a general practice firm. And they're trusted advisors. They figure out what is the most meaningful to a particular client, and what's most meaningful to one is not necessarily going to be most meaningful to someone else, but they figure out a way to have conversations around those things so that they're like number one on the speed dial. Even if, to Ito's point, it's not in their practice area, they value your opinion so much, even if it has nothing to do with your practice area, that you're at the top of their speed dial, and they seek out your advice.
Yeah. And Jennifer, you're not only a rainmaker, but you're interacting with rainmakers every day. What are some of the things that you're doing and seeing in them?
Well, I think that they are consistent. They're the ones that actually follow through on the plans that they make, and they put it into their calendar and they spend the time doing it. And they understand that it's part of their job is to help increase revenue. You have to have clients to serve. But I very much agree with what the other two panelists already said. It's about trying to help, and it's about becoming the trusted advisor. If you're a true trusted advisor to your clients, they call you when they need a college counselor or a referral for a travel specialist, or they need a new restaurant to go to. It doesn't only have to be in your area of law or in law at all. So when you're first starting out, when you're very junior, or maybe you've been in a service role and you're going to try and do business development for the first time, sometimes just being the one who's at the networking event when you hear somebody really needs, a nursing home for their grandparent, or needs to plan a vacation or something, being the one who goes back to the office, finds that information and calls or emails right away, you'd be amazed at how just having follow through really does separate you from the crowd.
Yeah. Wonderful. Phil?
Holy cow. If everybody can, is this going to be on repeat? You can
Yeah.
rewind to whoever's listening, rewind to what those three just said. That's absolutely fabulous. I love it. Maybe next time I'm going to sponsor this so that I can be on first
There you go.
instead of fourth. Anyway, so I think the only thing that I can add to that greatness is the fact that people should get the mindset of becoming a great listener. And the key to listening is, contrary to obviously this group's abilities, we're forced to talk here. But I bet you every single relationship that they get into, or at least I get into, I'm listening to what they have to say before I overlay what I'm going to say, because I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't have this pitch that's going through my head. I'm going to find out what's going to help them and then implement everything that was said. Also, I think the only other thing that is of value here, from my perspective, is relationships. I focus not on the business. I focus only on the relationship, and I'm okay with delayed gratification. I may say something to someone today, and I'll get a client, 10 months from now, a year from now, or maybe never. But it's okay that I've been involved in that process, because otherwise, what are we doing this for? It's for the relationship, to make ourselves feel better.
Yeah. I've had the great pleasure of interviewing all four of you on Be That Lawyer podcast, and the book behind me and was created from the Rainmakers from that show and the hundreds that I've interviewed. Something that I would add to this piece is mindset. It can be difficult when you're overloaded with work and you're overloaded with stress and all the things that happen. So I think having systems keeps coming up time and time again: a system for managing time or mastering time, a system for delegating, a system for a software to help you manage your email, to manage the things that are happening. And I find that the best rainmakers are also in many cases the most organized. So I would add to that if you're looking to be a rainmaker and you're feeling you got 2,000 hours on your back, not to mention your family, not to mention all the administrative and leadership roles and tasks, it's very, very challenging. So we've got to start thinking about how to get organized to maybe bill less and maybe delegate more and figure out how to keep yourself out on the field playing the rainmaking game, which is where a lot of the fun can happen. So great stuff all around, everybody. How does rainmaking then differ between smaller and larger firms? And what should attorneys adjust based on their environment? What should they be doing? And the nice thing is we've got a nice mix of people in big law and smaller firms and have that different experience. Ido, you want to start us out on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I started the first 10 years of my career at a few big firms here in Milwaukee, who had national footprints. And so I guess I can speak to this with my personal experience. You know, I always found it strange when I was at big law firms, especially as a young attorney, that they said, don't worry about rainmaking. Don't worry about bringing in clients. You focus on just doing the work and grinding, you know, hang out in your office and do what you're told. When you become a partner or a junior partner or about to become a partner, you know, then there's sort of this expectation that you're going to flip a switch and all right, now you got to go start getting clients. Differentiate that with what we generally do here. You know, rainmaking and bringing clients in and developing those skills are the lifeblood of our small firm. You know, everybody's got to be pretty profitable because we can't have small margins amongst 300 lawyers, right? Everybody's got to be pretty profitable. And so really from the first few weeks that you're here, we start talking to you about writing articles and doing the very baseline things that you're going to need to start developing those rainmaking skills. You know, we've got a new associate here. She's already started writing an article. I take her to a lot of events to meet people and see how I do it. And so I think really from the perspective is really just based on the business model of those two firms. I'd be really curious to see how Tina views it from her lens. But that was my experience. You know, it's really the difference of, you know, don't do it now, do it later versus, I mean, run from the get-go.
Yeah. Tina?
So, you know, it's interesting watching the evolution as we all have during the course of our careers in the legal profession. I'd say what Ido just profiled about growing up in big law, very much spot on. That, and I do still recommend to folks who are trying to make a career, which obviously needs to include rainmaking in big law, that you need to have something reputable to sell first, and you're selling yourself. And so you really need to be a great lawyer. You need to do what you need to do to position yourself within the context of the organization, presumably a law firm that you work at, to be able to get in front of clients, to work with a bunch of different people so that people need you on their files, you get the experience, and then you can, while you're doing that on a parallel track, develop your network and start selling also. I think that when you're at a big firm, you need to do that even earlier than maybe when Ido and I were coming up through the ranks. And at a big firm, as I mentioned earlier, what you have to sell is way beyond you. You have other practice areas to sell. You are not necessarily selling that you're the cheapest. What you're selling is you've got resources. You handle bet the company engagements. You have highly leveraged teams. That's what you're selling. And I would love to hear from the other folks on the panel about what you sell at smaller firms, but based on what I know of smaller firms, particularly boutiques, you know, you're usually selling in some ways for certain types of work, a lower price point and an expertise and maybe less conflicts, which in certain pockets and certain verticals is very meaningful, as well as, you know, I think the ability to focus on smaller clients a bit more than you would necessarily be able to focus on them in big law.
Yeah. Phil, you might be able to address that.
Sure. So yeah, we chase the big clients as well. And some of our clients are those that big law would love to have, but our perspective is that it's a little more interactive sometimes. Sometimes it's not two or three attorneys that are jumping into the game. It's like one attorney that's, you know, somewhat sophisticated in the area. But the key component, the only way we get those clients is as a result of us being able to go into a niche market. You know, we've been in Bitcoin and blockchain. We've been in logistics. We've been in aviation. We were in foreclosure defense during the downturn. So we sort of go to the niches where there's not a lot of competition. So that sort of is the development. But what I think is important is that a smaller firm has to have certain goals, and it's not the same goals as a large firm or a big law. And that's true, though. As a big law was once a small law, I think at some point. So they grew, and that maybe was the goals, and then they added and merged and grew. So the ideology is that I think it's sort of the same process. You have to be in the right places to service the type of clients that you want to service. So that I think that's is all I want to say on that one.
Yeah, great, Jennifer.
So I think starting out, I experienced the same thing at a larger firm. Keep your head down, just do good work. Clients will find you. I don't think they knew where I was because I wasn't really doing any marketing and business development. I think at a larger firm, you likely have more depth of resources. It's not only that you could bring in almost any kind of matter in almost any geography, but you also probably have a larger marketing slash business development department. And even junior lawyers could probably speak to those folks and see if they can get any tips if they look really interested and like they're going to really apply everything. On the other side, at a smaller firm, they may take more of an interest in helping you with your business development, mentoring you, because it is more important for you to be able to maybe bring in some clients at an earlier point in your career. And they probably have a threshold for those initial matters that it's much lower than a very large firm where, your friends may not have the deep pockets that your large firm is looking for right away. I think if you are an associate at a large firm, you should still concentrate on developing relationships. Keep in touch with anybody you know from college and law school, because if they're in a different practice area, if they're in a different geographic area, if they go in-house, they may be able to refer to you. And you can keep in touch with the lower level people at the client. If you're on a very big team at a large firm, you're likely not the only one who has client contact, but you probably speak to the junior people. And as you become mid-level and more senior, a lot of times they also get promoted and they get to the point where they can give out work or they go to another company and that company can become your client at some later point. So concentrating on developing relationships, even if you feel like those are not the people giving out the work right now, they're going to be in the future.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, this is going to be an interesting question. Phil requested this one, so I had to throw it in, and I was happy to do it. What should the ultimate goals of a rainmaker be? Phil, this is yours, so I'm going to let you throw it out and jump into it.
Yeah, I sent it in because it sort of came upon me when I read all the good material and thought about it. So I think there's 5 that I have, but I'm not going to set them all. But my goal is that my sales cycle is short. I'm going to get from the time I get an intake to the time of closure. I know that sort of contradictory to my immediate gratification, but once you get into the cycle, that's always the goal, is that you're not spending 50 hours on sales. You're spending 30 minutes and it's converted from all the work you did for decades. So that's number 1. And the interesting thing, someone told me the other day when I was talking, I go, when I go out, I don't really sell anything, right? It's not my goal to sell something. So the funny thing is that my goal is always to be that my authentic self, how I interact with clients, is the sale, because they know all the things that we can do for them. So that's a really important part of it. And then my ultimate goal, which is weird, and most people, maybe it's not for this panel, is I want to have friendships with all of my clients and all my strategic partners. I want to go to places with them. I want to spend time with them. So if that's part of it, then my life is better just for that reason, whether I make a dime or not. So,
well, and it's under discussed that rainmaking can be a lot of fun, because ultimately what you're doing is you're out there building relationships and solving problems. Well, what's more fun than that? And by the way, you're also then seen as a leader and seen as someone who really is caring about the firm, and you're bringing in the business, you're adding value. Like, there's no downside to do it. So I love that you brought that up. Jennifer, what's your take?
I mean, I think the ultimate goal should be helping people. So you're not going out there making sales, you're seeing if you can be of service. And if you're talking with a client who's not the right client for your firm, or you don't think your firm can really meet whatever their need is, it's much better not to try and push that. There are certainly a lot of potential candidates I speak to that I say, I can help fix it where you are. You don't need me, or you need to speak to Steve first before you can use me, or something like that. And in the context of a law firm, you shouldn't be trying to sell your services to everyone who crosses your path. You should be trying to solve a problem, trying to offer something of value so that it doesn't feel salesy. And as you develop those relationships, a client that you referred to somebody else instead of helping will remember that you were honest and you were authentic, and maybe they'll refer you business another time, or maybe they won't, but you'll enjoy your practice better because you're working with the right people.
Yeah, fantastic. Tina?
I love what's been said on this. I think it's really important what Jennifer just said. Do not always try to bring everybody you meet who needs a lawyer in as a client, because there's so many ways that could be misaligned from the get-go. And the last thing you want is to embark on the attorney-client journey with somebody who, from the get-go, is not really well aligned with what your business model is. And so I think that that's something that folks really need to keep in mind. I'd also say that helping people along the lines of what Jennifer said is really critical. And I think as part of that, helping the next generation of rainmakers is really important. And this is something that, especially whether it's a small firm, large firm, what I would call the multi-generational workforce, and keeping in mind that part of what our role and our responsibility is to bring others along, not just clients, but also folks, so that from an institutional standpoint, you don't have issues with a whole generation of rainmakers who end up retiring and then not having the next generation able to step in and continue the awesome work that generation of rainmakers had implemented.
Yeah, fantastic. Ito?
So to me, I run with the philosophy that people work with the people they like to work with. I think I'm a really good estate planner. I work with business owners, professional athletes, celebrities, people all over the world. But I'm not so silly as to think that I'm the best, and I know that there are a lot of people just like me. And so what I try to do is create an environment where people want to work with me as opposed to the next person. And so, I'm always looking to be a problem solver, develop relationships. I tell people here all the time, we spend more time together here in the office and with our clients than we do with our own families. And so to Phil's point, I mean, you should really enjoy this and embrace it and have it be part of your life. And I've been afforded the opportunity to meet incredible people in incredible industries. And sometimes I'm pinching myself thinking about who's across the table from me. And so to me, it's really cool. It's a great benefit of doing the rainmaking, but I do it because I love it, and I do it because I love this firm and helping to build it and helping to grow that next generation, right? It's great if you can do it, but to impart some of those skills, and certainly there are going to be generational different perspectives and things like that. But I love imparting the knowledge that I have on the next generation, and not with specificity, right? Here's the kinds of things that have worked for me. Find the thing that's going to fine tune for you and work for you. But I do think that there's a lot of value in, learning those skills, passing them on, and enjoying the people that you're meeting, and doing some good for some people along the way. It's great. It's a great feeling too.
Yeah, and the internal selfish side of why someone would and should become a rainmaker, and I'm asking hundreds of lawyers every year, what's your motivation? Why do you want to become a rainmaker? What is this all about? And the same answers come up over and over, and Jennifer's going to smile immediately when she hears this, but it's independence, control, and freedom in my career.
Mm.
I don't want to be beholden to the things that the firm says because they're saying just do your work and shut up and just get it done. 2,000 hours, right? And do that every year. And people are starting. I'm getting more and more lawyers coming out of the woodwork saying I'm not gonna just be a sheep here. I'm actually gonna step up and I've got to start looking at this skill as a part of my career and how I'm going to develop myself and have my own clients because then I have the autonomy. And that's what's missing for a lot of associates and partners. And I've got people coming to me in their 50s, in some cases their 60s, and they're service partners, and they are not thrilled with the decisions they've made. And then I hear the same thing every time. I should have done this 20 years ago. Of course you should have done it 20 years ago. So I think there's a number of really amazing answers that we just shared with everybody. And so thank you, Phil, for putting this question out.
Hey, before you go on, can we ask Ido if he's pinching himself now, talking to all of
Are you
us?
pitching yourself?
Yeah, being in all of your good graces is amazing. Thank you.
Well played, sir. All right, here's an interesting question. If you had to start all over again tomorrow, knowing what you know now, what would you do in your first 90 days to set yourself up as a rainmaker? So you can go back and have like a redo of something that maybe didn't work for you. Let's start with Phil. Let's jump back with you on this one.
I think that I liked the fact that I became a generalist. I know that's not the answer, that I learned a lot of things early on, but maybe I would have gotten more involved in things that were way beyond me at the very beginning. And the reason why I say that is that I always thought at my level. I never thought bigger. And as I got older as an attorney and more mature with my decisions, the more I aimed higher, the better it was, and the better the clients came. And it's still happening to today. So,
Yeah, great. Jennifer?
So I had the mistaken impression when I was a young associate that I could only be a rainmaker or bring in a client if I was the very best lawyer that they could possibly choose. And I think that there are a lot of really skilled attorneys that could probably serve the same client. And clients like to work with people they know, like, and trust. So the most important thing that you can do is develop relationships where they can count on you, where you do what you say you're going to do, where you have the follow through. And then hopefully you're top of mind when something comes up, and hopefully you're following up with them so that you don't get erased from their memory. And I wish that I had known to start my rainmaking journey from the day I graduated from law school, or maybe from law school and kept up with every
Yeah,
single one of my classmates, because that was a really nice group of people that could have been responsible for, some clients along the way. So it's never too late, but I think it's never too early.
that's fantastic. Ido?
I mean, what Jennifer just said, one of the sayings we have around here is the goal is not to be the smartest lawyer behind an empty desk. You know, you being a great lawyer is great, but you like, people need to know that, and they need to want to work with you. I mean, for me, I don't know that I would change anything honestly. I had the good fortunes of growing up in a household with an entrepreneur dad, who had, I think, one semester of college under his belt, but a PhD from the School of Hard Knocks. And so I saw him build a business and make a lot of mistakes and learn a lot of lessons. And I'm really happy with the path that I'm on. I always say I wouldn't be where I'm at now if I started changing things. I made mistakes. I learned from them. I grew from them. But I wouldn't change anything. I mean, set long-term, midterm, long-term, short-term goals, right? If you want to get to the moon, you're not going to get there tomorrow if you don't have a plan. And so set your plan and start chipping away at it and figure out how you got to get to that next step, next step, next step.
Yeah.
Learn from mistakes and go from there.
Beautiful. Tina?
What everybody has said has been terrific. The only thing I'd add is starting earlier in my career of getting comfortable being outside my comfort zone as an introvert. It's really easy to sort of just hide out, do your work, do great work, and wash, rinse, repeat, and not really put yourself out there to develop the relationships that you need. And so I would have just sort of flexed that, getting myself out of my head and being out there more from day one, and figuring out a way to balance that with what was a very, very busy desk in terms of billing. And I was actually straddling between two different practice groups, which from a substantive and developmental standpoint was great. And it helped me meet a lot of people at my firm at a very young age. But I would have gotten more external earlier.
Yeah. And I think this may be, either our last question or second to last question, but it's really difficult to be a rainmaker without systems and habits and things that allow you to stay consistent with your performance. And the problem is, for many lawyers. I mean, I was talking to some. I have peer advisory groups. I had one. I think he said 450 emails a day.
Ugh.
450 emails a day, right? And you guys are like, yeah, that's no big deal. But you've got all these pressures and things going on and trials and whatever is going on. And then to stay consistent with something that seems to just get pressed down to the bottom. Jennifer, what's your take on that? How do you do it? And then how do you see others do it?
Yeah, so I think having some systems and being willing to delegate, and I think putting it on your calendar. We're all about planning intentionally. So I do that in my business, but I counsel all of the rainmakers that I work with. Take out your calendar, plan your vacation because you have to refresh and come back more creative and rested, and then plan which conferences are you going to, which networking group are you joining. Put all of those meetings on your calendar. When is the time that you're going to reach out to the people you've been meeting? I want to see at least 20 minutes on everybody's calendar per week. And once in a while, you're in the middle of a trial or a deal is signing that day and you won't get to it. But if you have it on your calendar as something that you're not purposely scheduling over, you'll get to it most of the time. Planning that stuff and figuring out who can help you with it, going to your firm's marketing department and asking them for help, asking your assistant for help, figuring out who can be part of your team, but making it's a part of your job. Part of your job is to continue to bring revenue to your firm, whether you're at a small firm or a large firm. So you have to make the beginning rainmaking activities and keeping up with it part of your schedule so that you never ignore it.
But I love that you just said it's part of your job. And I think most lawyers don't, they see it as an additional aspect of the job, not part of the job. So I love that you said that because every good rainmaker will say, yeah, it's part of what I do every day is I've got to bring in business in addition to being a great lawyer and all the other things. Tina?
I think that for me, it's thinking about BD every day. So, to Jennifer's point, having the system, having the framework where it's something on your calendar. For me, I've got it on my calendar at the same time every day. Sometimes I get to it, sometimes I don't get to it, but I really try as consistently as possible to be doing at least a couple of things BD related every day, even on the weekends, and figuring out what is most appropriate for which day in that context. And also making sure that I revisit on a pretty regular basis the kinds of activities that I'm engaging in and whether there's a return. Because just like when you take on roles both within and outside of the organizations that you work for, and you need to sort of take stock of whether you're really getting a return on that and whether you're really giving as much as you need to the organization. It's the same thing with BD. There may be certain things that were very effective, but then you've got a plateau effect going on, and then you need to, shake it up and figure out, well, maybe there's something else that I can do that's more effective than what I have been doing, at least with respect to a certain demographic and your target audience.
Yeah. Wonderful. Phil?
So I think I have the opposite problem. I think he says with work, even when you're overloaded with business development. So I got to get to that because it's so fun to do. I mean, if that's part of it, and I think a lot of attorneys that don't see how much enjoyment they get out of it, and it's like, all right, so if I have to do work on a weekend just because I could do more business development, that's the habit that I want to create. It's so important to me, and I think just keeping in touch and having those set in the scheduling is important, as Jennifer said. But I have events for my clients every quarter so that they're always have ability to have access to me, knowing at times I'm not going to get to that. And then finally setting goals. Like last October, I said, I want to get to a certain type of client. And I did it. I put in my calendar each month I travel to a different city to meet new people I haven't met before. I didn't think I was going to do it. It was just a goal. And then suddenly it happened.
Awesome. Ito.
So I love that I get the last word on this, because one of the things I hear from people, right, is that I'm so busy, I'm so bogged down with client work or whatever. You know, I'm the managing partner of a multi-million-dollar law firm. I'm the mayor of my little village. I just raised $9 million for a new library. I'm a consultant for a company in California. I make cufflinks. I restore cars. I do a cajillion different things. And I think I do them all really well. I'm the estate planning editor for Investopedia. I prioritize all that stuff. I love doing it. But to something Tina said way at the very beginning of this, one of the great things rainmakers do is they find opportunities where others don't, and they find ways to connect things. All the things I just rattled off have all been incredibly fun for me, but also incredibly fruitful in terms of building my practice and finding clients. So I found a really great way to combine the things I love to do and have interest in with business development. So when I'm doing them on the weekend, it's not work to me. It's just more fun stuff that come Monday is going to lead to phone calls coming in. I love that my life has gotten to that point.
Well, this has been quite the hour with you four, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you guys coming on the panel and sharing your wisdom. And I know that everybody that's watching live and that will watch the recording will be better for it. So with that, I'm gonna thank you guys again, and I'll follow up with you separately. But really, really wonderful job today. Cheers.
Thanks, Steve.
Well done.
Thank you.